What's going on, everybody? Patrick Auger, Drake Riggs here. The boys are back, and we are here today to talk about UFC 267's co-main event for the interim Bantamweight title. Petr Yan versus Cory Sandhagen. Now, Cory has come out, said he's thankful for the opportunity. He's flying in a bunch of crazy training partners to get him ready, but he's also said that this is pretty much for the belt because no one considers Aljamain Sterling the champion. Everyone still sees Yan as the true champion. Drake, before we get into a preview of the fight a little bit, let's start there. Is that the case? Is that what the streets are saying? That Yan's the real champ and Sterling's just paper champ? What's your thoughts on this?
Them streets, they talk, Pat. We know that they are loud out there, especially in the MMA world. The streets of Vegas, the streets of Russia, wherever you may be in the bantamweight division. I mean, it's tricky because, unfortunately, I would say that is the case where pretty much nobody except for Aljamain and his team considers him the champion. But, man, as weird of a situation as it is, and the more I listen to Aljamain and the points he brings up, I cannot disagree with the guy. This is not his fault, you guys. It's Petr Yan's fault for kneeing him illegally. Like, that's it. If that didn't happen, if that never happened, we wouldn't even have to worry about this. Sterling likely would not have been champion. That's just how that fight was going. He wasn't winning up until that point. But instead, here we are. All the wackiness of it. A disqualification to become a champion. Yeah, that doesn't look good no matter how you spin it. But Aljamain is the champion. He should be treated as a champion because he won in a fair fashion, even though, you know, it's not your typical fashion.
Fair fashion.
I mean, if you think about rules, man, there's rules here. So if this was anywhere over in Asia, then we wouldn't have to worry about it either. But we have to because that's how rules work. Sterling is the proper champion. I understand it because it is weird. He was losing again, like I said, but who's got the belt? Who's got the belt? Who didn't cheat? Look at it this way. Will he be treated? Will the winner of this fight be treated as a real champion still? Yes, of course they will. And it's the same case with lightweight a little bit, where a lot of people consider Dustin the champion, which I think is maybe even a little bit weirder because you look at lost more recently than Oliveira on a tear. That's a whole other situation. We won't go to that, but at bantamweight here, I think Sterling is rightfully the champion, but of course the winner of this fight will be considered as, or how about this, Pat? Let's look at it this way. Sterling's the champion. That's an undeniable fact. That's just a fact, but the best bantamweight in the world will be the winner of this fight.
See, that's an interesting way to put it because here's the thing. Aljamain Sterling himself has fanned the flames of this paper champion talk.
Yes,
right? He is really fanned the flames. I don't really have much sympathy for people saying he's a paper champion because he's only really bolstered that argument with some of the things he's done and recorded and said. Most recently, I forget which podcast it was, whether it was his own or it was something else where he was talking about that sequence of events of being like, I remember, kind of being out of it and realizing that if, I was hurt and I didn't want to continue and I'd get the belt. It's like, oh, okay, man, that doesn't, it's not painting you in any sort of good light. So as someone who prefers the Ryzen rule set, that applauds Colorado for passing knees to grounded opponents, or at least looking to do that, whatever. I forget if they've actually done it or not at this point when we're recording, but it's hard for me not to look at Sterling as the paper champ because he was like on the verge of being finished, and Yan really just used the wrong strike to finish the fight. I'm pretty sure had he used punches that wouldn't be done. So yeah, I mean, for me, he's a bit of a pain. I gotta say it. I gotta say it. But when you come to your question, the winner of Sandhagen versus Yan is the best bantamweight in the world. I gotta disagree with that too, though.
Ooh.
Because technically, Sandhagen lost to TJ Dillashaw, and he's getting this title fight off of a loss. In fact, I think this is the first time, I'm not 100% sure, but
two
losers are going up for a belt. I think if Yan wins, he could very well be the best bantamweight in the world. If Sandhagen wins, it's there, and maybe if he defends the belt a couple of times, then yes, that solidifies him as the best bantamweight in the world. But I mean, having lost a close fight to TJ Dillashaw, and then losing to Sterling in dominant fashion as his last loss before that, I can't say that this is someone that is definitively the best bantamweight in the world. That would have been like if Derek Lewis had beaten Cyril Gane and had the strap. Like, to me, that's not, oh, he's the best heavyweight. You've gotten Ngannou right there. Or say Ngannou was out in us for the real belt. That's not, he's not the best heavyweight in the world. I love Derek Lewis. He's fantastic. I mean, he just lost to JDS not that long ago. You've got to prove it when you have those losses so recently, especially given that those losses were not controversial, right? Like, the only loss in this whole situation that's controversial is Jan's, when he didn't quite understand he had the DQ. Other than that, Yan has still looked like a monster and looked like the best bantamweight of the world for a long time. So that's where I'm at. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree, disagree that if Sandhagen wins, maybe not the best bantamweight in the world?
Well, I mean, we talked about this a while back, Pat, and I mean, I think that Sandhagen just edged that fight out, and I know a lot of people do think that he won it. Like you said, very, very close. Not a robbery, no matter how you cut it. But many people think that Sandhagen should have won anyways, which is why I've seen pretty much no complaining about this being made. But also, TJ is out right now, right, recovering from his knee injuries, right? That's what's going on there. So he couldn't have slid in anyway, even if he wanted to. Surely we'll see him in that picture immediately. And could you imagine if that eventually lined up Sandhagen and Dillashaw too for the title? Very possible. Who knows? That'd be interesting to see. There's just so many possibilities at bantamweight and so many great fighters, which is why it is still hard to say who is definitively like the best bantamweight in the world, because talking outside the UFC too, there are some absolute monsters. Obviously, Horiguchi's there. Of course, I'm going to give a shout out to that man. Sergio Pettis looking amazing right now as well in Bellator. List goes on and on. I'm not going to name everyone because there's too many, but I understand where you're coming from, because the fact that the fight with TJ still was so close, no matter how you think, who you think won, he was that close with a guy who came off a 2-year layoff and, with the drug stuff, all this, which kind of makes you think, well, I don't know. If that happened that way, is that still fair to say definitively he's the guy? Probably not. And then even with Yan, man, it's like before the Sterling fight, I was still kind of on the fence, because you look at the guys he was beaten. There was the Faber one. There was Aldo is very weird at this point, where he is still proven to be a legitimate top guy, but like, how top? And we'll find out as he continues to fighting, which is crazy because he's been around for so long. But I still wasn't sure about Yan going into the Sterling fight. And then against Sterling, he did as well as he did despite the illegalities, which, helps and hurts his case. So I think you may have convinced me just right there that we won't know. We won't know who the best will be.
So it's bad. I mean, that's a good thing, right? Bantamweight is flush with talent. It's fantastic. We've got so many options, so many dream fights we could make. That's a good problem to have. There are other divisions that's not the case. There's 2 or 3 top guys that are just circling, and it's like, cool, this is just gonna keep happening, and one of y'all is the best, and that's great. Fight each other 3 times, and cool, there you have it. But yeah, so with that in mind, right, this fight, early prediction here, early preview, who do you got? Who do you think's gonna edge this one?
Man, it's an interesting one, because like I said, I still wasn't totally sure about how good Yan was against, if he had been fighting the best competition, all that kind of thing going into the Sterling fight. But then he pretty much proved us wrong, or the doubters that might have been, despite the knee, because again,
not us, Drake, proved
you. Yeah. Fair enough. So like, he has proven that he is definitely one of the absolute best up there. But that fight was a while ago, and I don't think rust will be an issue for him or anything like that. And then taking on Sandhagen, who is just one of the lankiest, rangiest, most diverse guys in the entire division. Very safe to say that he's never fought anyone like that. So that presents the issue, or the puzzle for Yan, of like, how is he going to react to all these different things that Sandhagen does. And if, Dillashaw could nullify that to an extent and enough to get the win, right? I think Yan should be able to, because we've seen that his boxing is ridiculous. His wrestling is also on point. The guy can pretty much do it all and chain things together nicely, and he hits very hard. Sandhagen, I don't know if he's proven that he has like that one punch knockout power. And I don't even want to say that Yan necessarily has either, but I feel like it's safe to say that Yan is more powerful just with his punches and that kind of thing. Cory can just land those very precise, crazy strikes like the flying knees and what have you. So I don't know. I think that Sandhagen will get pressured, similar to the Dillashaw fight, because that's just what Yan does. No mercy, right? Shows no mercy. Right. He'll back him up, make him think, and it'll all come down to if Cory can adjust on the fly better than he did against TJ, and against a guy who I think is more dangerous than TJ and Yan. I don't know if he'll be able to do that. So despite all the admiration and belief I had in Cory after the Frankie Edgar win and all that, I thought that, he may have had the case right there. I think I'm going to lean towards Yan early on here, but I'm not super confident in it, but that's going to be my early lean, Pat.
Yeah, it's not a bad lean and not a bad prediction. I think this is one of the stiffest tests for Yan. And I think Sandhagen, Dillashaw winning that fight against Sandhagen by a razor's edge, and I can understand if you scored it the other way. Very, very tough fight. And I think what you brought up about Jan's pressure is really the key here, is because as time goes on, I really expect that win over Aldo to just look better and better. I fully expect Aldo to kind of run through most of the bantamweight division, maybe struggle with the elite, but be kind of a top 5, top 10 guy. And so I think when it comes to Cory's problems, that pressure is going to be like Dillashaw was, only far worse, far more technical boxing, and just nonstop. I think that's something where Yan, when I first saw him in Chicago back at UFC 238, I thought that's the guy that's going to beat Henry Cejudo. Like, that's the one. His technical boxing and just chin, everything about him, it just like, I'm going to mow you down. The thing about Yan is that technical pressure is going to be far worse than Dillashaw and is going to be nonstop. And Jan's chin, Jan's just accuracy with his strikes, his power. He's not necessarily a one-punch guy, like you said, but, he's a 1 or 2 punch guy. He reminds me a lot of Dustin Poirier, right?
Right.
Poirier doesn't really knock people out with one straight punch. He usually rocks them a little bit, and then follows up with 2 or 3 just crisp, clean punches that just all add up, and then it becomes this cumulative knocking someone out. I really think that's what's going to happen here. I think that Yan is going to continually pressure Sandhagen. I don't know that Sandhagen will get knocked out because his chin seems to be made of just granite, but
both of them, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. But I think the pressure is going to be too much either way. And I think it's going to be overwhelming. I wouldn't be shocked to see Yan get a finish here by TKO. That's my prediction in later rounds, just after all that accumulation, because he hasn't fought someone with the striking ability of Sandhagen before, but in terms of being tall and lanky, I mean, look what he did to Aljamain Sterling, right? Like, yeah. I don't see Sandhagen having any tricks up his sleeve that are going to really neutralize Jan's game, because I don't know that we've really seen that in a super effective way before. I think maybe the closest we saw was Dodson for a round, and then that was about it, right? Like, so I don't know. I'm going Yan here. That's my prediction on this one.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Dodson fight. It's like, well, very few guys are going to have that speed, which is kind of what it was, right? For the most part.
Dodson, swan song for John Dodson, who is criminally underrated and one of the best bantamweight and flyweights ever to do it. That guy put on some boring fights on occasion, but man, he hung with the best of them in such ridiculous ways. So, well, with that in mind, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, bell notification so you know when we're dropping new videos. Welcome, the boys are back in town. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think that this is the right fight to make? Do you think that these are the 2 best bantamweights and that the best bantamweight will emerge out of this title fight, even though the technical champ isn't involved? And who you got? We might do a breakdown later on. We'll see, but who do you got? Give us a preview. Let us know. With that in mind, I don't know. Stay tuned next time.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Yeah.